So I'm back again to talk about, you know it, American domestic politics. And I'm going to show you a clip. It's going to enrage MAGA because it's going to talk about the worst states in America to live in. And newsflash, it's not California, it's not New York. It's all red states. Okay. And you kind of already know what states are going to come up on this list. Obviously, it's going to be Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and so on. I'm going to show you guys a list in this video, but it's not shocking because when you really look deep into the weeds of this, you're going to realize that every state with a crisis is not a blue state problem. Okay, so I know how everybody wants to go back and say, oh, Maryland's a terrible state to live in because of this and that. New Jersey's a terrible state to live in because of this and that. And again, all these states have their problems. I'm not sitting here saying that if you move to a blue state, it's going to be a utopia. It's not. They got a lot of problems too. But the worst states to live in are actually solid red states. Because if you look in the knee deep of policy in those states, I remind people, yeah, the cost of living in like Mississippi is very cheap. But I want to remind you of something. You know what the wages are in Mississippi? You know that their minimum wage is still the federal minimum wage? Yeah. People in Mississippi are still making $7.25 an hour. I want to remind people. States like Louisiana and Mississippi have not raised their minimum wage when every other state has. That right there is a problem because inflation hit those states too. I want to remind people. It didn't just hit blue states. Inflation's hit nationwide. All right. And also, some of these states have grocery taxes. Yeah, we don't have that in Nevada, thankfully. We don't even have a food tax. All we have is a sales tax. You know, so yeah, the quality of life in these states are not what the political propagandists tell you. Okay. They may be cheaper, but they don't have lower crime rates like they tell you. And that's why I said crime and poverty is not a blue state problem. Okay. It's worse in red states. All right. So, this idea that everything that happens in America that's bad as far as poverty, people on the streets, and chaos and political mayhem, they think it's all, oh, it's all in California, New York, and Chicago or Illinois. No, that's not true. It's not a blue state issue, it's a nationwide issue. Okay. And part of the problem is, I want to remind people the quality of life in these states are worse. Crime is higher in red states. Poverty rates are higher in red states. Okay, these states, people are living in third world conditions. All right. Their government officials don't even fund programs to help the people of their state. All right. Their minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. So yeah, a house may be a lot cheaper in Mississippi than it would be in California or New York or even here in Nevada or Colorado. But I want to remind people the wages are also lower too. There's no career and job opportunities in those states. Okay. The average wage in the median wage in like Mississippi or Louisiana or Tennessee is like 46-50,000 a year. That's nothing. That's the upper echelon of income. So yeah, you could buy a house for like 180,000 versus 500,000 or 800,000. But guess what the average wage is in those states? About 40-50,000 a year. Okay. Minimum wage is still $7.25 in those states. I'll remind you, even here in Nevada, minimum wage is about $12 an hour. Okay. So if you just said the cost of living ratio, you're still coming out of the lower end because wages are much lower in those states. So yes, you can get a house cheaper, but your wages are lower. Most people make less money in these states. Okay. So that's the ultimate thing you have to look at. I mean, again, I'm not saying that a blue state is perfect. Blue states have their problems too, especially when it comes to inflation. The cost of things in California are absorbently high. The cost of things in Hawaii are absorbently high. In New York, things are absorbently high. So I'm not saying that everything's great in those states. But when you really look at the worst states to live in on the list, it's states that you think otherwise because you think, oh, states in the South, cheaper. Depends on what state you're talking about. I mean, there are some states in the South that would probably be preferably great to live in. I mean, I'm sure states like the likes of Georgia, North Carolina, maybe Texas. That's iffy with Texas, but you know, then again, I remind people that Texas, the legislative branch, effectively voted to take away a woman's right to choose. Marijuana is still illegal. Um, they've taken away direct representation and democracy in their state. So it really depends on what issue you care about. You know, I believe in freedom for all. I believe we all have a right to love who we want, identify as who we want. Okay? I believe one person, one vote. In some of these states, they don't believe in that. You know, like there are things we have that we take for granted in certain parts of the country. Like I'm thankful I can vote for my house in Nevada. And that was due to my great governor, who unfortunately people voted out, Sisolak, who made sure he expanded voting by mail. Okay? So those things matter. People may not pay attention to all those issues, but they really matter. You know, because I couldn't imagine not being able to being allowed to sit home and not be allowed to sit home and vote from home and have to go to the polls and wait for hours in the heat or the cold to cast a ballot. In some states, people have to do that because of the voter suppression tactics these legislators push. Okay. There are many aspects you have to look at when you move to some of these particular states. Whether it comes to criminal justice issues, whether it comes to voting laws on the books, whether it comes to gerrymandering, cost of living, quality of life, wages, labor. Well, that's another thing. The labor laws in those states are far worse, which I argue they're bad in Nevada too, because we still have the right to work law on the books, which is a terrible law. You know how high job turnover is here? Because it's a right to work state. You can get fired for anything. An employer can fire you if you look at them the wrong way, just because the state protects their right to do that. Imagine that. Well, imagine what these states are like that have no labor laws on the books. Okay, in some of these states, they actually repealed labor laws where the employer has complete control over you. Okay, they took away basic break and labor protections for workers. That's what they did in Texas recently, actually. So some of these states, they're terrible states to work in and live in for the simple fact that they're not pro-labor at all. They're pro-corporate. You know, so that's not always a good thing, though. You know, and we still have that problem here in our state of Nevada. Again, you don't get as many benefits. Most jobs are not union. Wages are low. And the employer gets the final say over everything. And they can fire you for whatever they want. That is the reality of some of these places in the country. And that's why I tell people who you vote for does matter. Government does matter. You want a government that looks out for your interests, not one that looks out for corporate industry and interest and only their own bottom line. That does matter. So I'm going to show you a video and highlight this list here. See y'all. Goodbye.